Good morning. Welcome to Kentucky Housing Corporation Weatherization Technical Assistance for the quarter. This is Kelly Reynolds. I'm going to give everyone a minute or so to get on. So we're still admitting people, so I don't want anyone to miss all of the information. So let's wait for a minute or so to get everybody in. We are recording today. So Johnny has it recorded, and then we will try to get this on our YouTube channel, so that you can go back and watch it. All right, and if you're just joining, we're just giving everyone a minute or two to get on before we start the content. John, if you want to go ahead and bring up just the first, like the beginning of the presentation with that KHC slide, we can. Thank you. I slowed down a little bit for people joining, so we'll go ahead. If everyone will mute your microphones, that would be super. That way you don't get any feedback. But if you want to stop me with a question or comment at any point in the content, please feel free to do that. This is open. We want this to be an open discussion. And there will be some slides where we ask for discussion. So I just want you to be comfortable with unmuting yourselves, or you can also drop something in the chat. Patty usually monitors the chat for us. So I'm going to let her have that task again today. And we will go ahead and get started. From KHC today, you have on the call Kelly Reynolds, Ellery Gessler, Danielle Bilsby, John Bush, Patty Swalla. I saw Chase Garrett join, and I think I've seen Mark Adams join as well. So you have a good representation of PhD staff with the weatherization program. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today we will cover some admin information as well as technical information. And then we have some discussion slides of just things that we're seeing that are coming out, guidance that's coming out from DOE, and I'm sure it will spark a lot of discussion. So we will go ahead and get started. All right, Johnny, you can flip the slide. All right, so the very first thing that we always feature per your request really is weatherization averages. So we want to talk about where we are with the weatherization averages. We right now, this is the formula. So we want to always highlight what this formula is. You have weatherization materials plus labor, then you add in your vehicle and equipment, plus your program support, and you divide that by your number of completions to get your per unit average. As many of you know, the per unit average is written into legislation. It was written into legislation in the 1970s when weatherization was introduced into the federal budget. We cannot verify the average cost per unit. DOE can put some things in to help alleviate it, which they are trying to do and have tried to do, but the average cost per unit is the average cost per unit. And I just got something that says my sound is a bit muffled. So, Ellery, Johnny, Patty, are you all hearing my sound is muffled?
Just a little.
Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay. Let me try to unplug my headset. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is it
Yeah.
better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, and your Ken says yes. Okay, thank you, Ken. All right. So weatherization averages, this is the formula. It was written in legislation that we have to adhere to the averages. We are with our DOE formula grant. This is the grant that normally ends June 30th, but it is set to end September 30th. We are at September 4th. We did receive a 90-day no cost extension. So this is where we're at. So we want to point out where we are at with our averages. So Johnny's going to flip to the next slide so you can see where we landed June 30th. So our target for the DOE formula grant currently is $8,497. Usually we are able to meet that by June 30th. As you can see in quarter four, which ended June 30, we were at $9,639.20 with 302 total completions. So definitely we were still off by about $1,200. So we have to shrink that by September 30th. We are in the last, 26 days of the DOE formula grants. We have 26 days to get that down. And what we are seeing is we are seeing a number of subgrantees who have stopped production due to your LIHEAP funding. So we are going to, I fear that we will take a hit this year on DOE formula. Our project officer from DOE has already talked to us about this, and he said there will be payback this year. So I'm telling you now, I want everyone to hear this loud and clear. If you're a finance director or a finance person on this call, that if you are over the average cost per unit, and we as a state are over the average cost per unit, you will have to pay money back to DOE. So be prepared, because that is where we're at. All right, for DOE IIJA, traditionally we refer to this as bill funding. The target average over 5 years. So we have like this 5-year average. Really now it's becoming a 7-year average. So we don't really know what that average is going to look like, but we did list out here all the average cost per units for the years that we can track. We are right now at $12,330.66 with 445 total completions. I do want to point out something though. So while we're still over, definitely over our average, our target average for 5 to 7 years, we were in quarter three at $17,759 with 260 total completions. This is an indication of, this is the Shalom Towers. So Shalom Towers is at 12,300. It was 150 units. It definitely dropped our average cost per unit. You can see what that project, why we are pushing multifamily, and we are really pushing CETA to help us hit those goals of doing weatherization in multifamily, because that average cost per unit dropped about $5,400 in one quarter. So with one project, it's huge, guys, it's huge. So that definitely helps us on the IIJA funding. It helps us look better. We did, many of you know, we hit a OIG report as a state because we were over our average cost per unit. So this is definitely looking a lot better. So thank you, Multipurpose, for convincing me to do Shalom Towers, because it did take a lot of convincing. Thank you for all of your diligence. I know it was not an easy project. I know you went into waters that it was uncharted territory, and you waded through the waters and swam through those waters, sometimes thinking you were going to sink. But I appreciate all of the due diligence you gave on that, because it does definitely help our state averages. I think there was a comment in the chat about the averages. Want to address it's the payback will be for agencies, subgrantees who are over their average CPU. Is that correct? Yes, that would be correct. So it will, that's where that payback will be, is for any subgrantees who are over their average cost per unit, but there is a number of you. So I just want to be very upfront that that's what's going to have to happen. How are we on health and safety averages on the DOE average? We're fine. Not a concern. I think, do you remember? I think we were coming in around 13%.
About 13 and a half.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're doing okay on health and safety averages under DOE formula and DOE IIJA. IIJA is actually at like 8%. So it's doing extremely well. All right. I'm going to close out the chat so I can see the screens better. All right. Any more questions about state averages before I move on? I think the next slide is going to be about program support. All right. Johnny, let's go to the next slide. All right. So this is just a comparison amongst the quarters. So you can kind of see where we are from last year to this year. So WX24 was last year's DOE formula. WX25 is this year's DOE formula. You can see at the end, when we ended June 30th, where we were. So last year, June 30th, we had 301 completions. This year we had 302. So one more completion, but we were at almost $1 million more in expenditures. So you can definitely see that we are causing it definitely we have an issue with average cost per units. And we've had a couple of people join, so that's what that announcement was. This is huge. Spending $1 million more for one more completion, that doesn't really go well for what we're trying to achieve in average cost per unit. So I'm going to say about that. You all can see the numbers. All right, next slide. Program support. We have talked about this. I think we started this back in third quarter. We talked about this at the CAK conference. Program support's problem. Huge problem. We're talking about our average cost per unit. So recall the first slide, which we had a program support highlighted that it calculates in an average cost per unit. So when you're trying to balance your jobs, you have to balance where your program support is. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subgrantees under the formula, which is the chart in the green, who are over the average cost per unit for the DOE formula grant. That's significant. Maybe we might have 6. Because I think that 8,483 is also over. So we have 6 agencies, but you guys can kind of look where, so here's our average, what we have highlighted in yellow at the bottom of the green chart is $8,497 is where we're supposed to be. So it's just a tick. That 6th agency is just a tick under the average cost per unit. This is hugely significant because if you are doing 30 jobs and your average cost per unit is $8,483, then honestly, where you're at is you really can only spend, what is that, $14 on a job to stay under the average cost per unit. $14 per job is not much. So these are a problem. I know we said pay people, but somehow we've got to get program support under control. And you can see what we're looking at under IIJA. LIHEAP, your program support looks a little bit better than it does under DOE formula and IIJA funding. That is also a problem because LIHEAP is where we could absorb a little bit more in program support, but you all are not spending as much in that category under LIHEAP funding. So definitely we're not balancing this well. Going forward, once our DOE state plan is approved, we'll talk about that in a few slides. We will be able to, we're going to eliminate some of the program support because we'll have those optional categories, which we'll talk about. So program support should get better. I don't want to go back to, we had a time in this program where we limited you on the percentage that you could draw on program support. We don't want to go back to that. So we're going to monitor this for another year using those optional categories and just see where we are at the end, at the end of the year with the optional categories. But just wanted to highlight this. Okay. Next slide. Completions. So again, we want to point out where you are in completions compared to what our targets are in the state plan. In 2023, in our DOE state plan, you were definitely over. You have been traditionally over in most of the past 5 to 6 years. During COVID, there was like some struggles. We had some struggle buses, but that's okay. That was COVID, right? And we came back. With IIJA, you can see in 2024, we were under our state plan target for formula, but that's when we received the IIJA money. So overall, you were producing more than what we had put in the state plan, but that was because of the IIJA money, or what we have referred to as bill here, because it's what we were referring to it as. Same thing in 2025. You can see we definitely have increased our capacity and our production, but we're still not hitting the formula targets. Under bill, altogether, we are at 3,421 completions. IIJA, we have 445 through June 2025. So we're definitely below production on that. Let's see, there was something that popped up in the chat. Light heat trends tends to catch a lot of health and safety expenditures, reducing what is available for program support. Should we consider bill requests to exceed on health and safety as an average is 8%? Yes. Yes, you definitely could start exceeding IIJA health and safety percentages with your health and safety. You could do requests to exceed on those to exceed that. We can absorb a little bit. So that would be a way to loosen up some of your light heat money to spend more in regular weatherization and less in health and safety. Definitely. That is some of what we're seeing is you're spending a lot of light heat money in health and safety, which leaves you not very much to spend on regular weatherization measures and in program support. So definitely spending less in health and safety under light heat would give you more to spend in regular materials, and you could increase your spend in health and safety on IIJA for sure. We could absorb that. If our state plan is approved for DOE formula, again, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. We will have the ability, I think I increased health and safety to 17%. So if that gets approved, we'll have that 17% threshold for health and safety, which will give you a little bit more wiggle room on my heat. And that was really was kind of some of my defense in asking for more health and safety money under the DOE formula. So hang tight. But good thought, West Kentucky Allied. I'm trying to balance that out. All right, next slide. Light heat funding trends, we kept this in here so that you could see where we are. I just wanted to remind you that really our funding for 2025 was about where it was last year, not a whole lot of difference. Again, we did not spend out. I think we had about $1 million left. Patty, is that right? In light heat?
Yeah, about just under 1.2, but a lot of that was admin that we're not going to be able to spend.
Right.
So
because we're limited on admin. So the cabinet, many of you know that the cabinet limits us on admin to 10% of our program operations money, which is your materials and labor and your health and safety. All right, so we spent about what we were spending. We actually did a little bit better than we did last year on spend, if you can see, but we had a whole lot more money last year. It was an anomaly, really. But you can see we were right in line with 2022 and 2023. We spent a little bit less, but not terribly less. What we get this year, I don't know. It really depends on the federal budget. Right now, we received about 1.2 million, or maybe it was 1.9 million that's supposed to cover us July through September 30th. I have not heard any word on a rollover, so I cannot bank on rollover money. And until there is a federal budget passed, I don't know really what will happen for October 1. We were on a continuing resolution, so we should get some money. I just don't know, you all. I don't know. Okay, next slide. Job completions. So we know your line heat funds are limited, but that doesn't mean that you stop spending on projects. So we have heard from some subgrantees that they just are not spending. They're not doing any jobs because they don't have enough line heat money. So you can see from all of the slides that we are definitely not hitting an average cost per unit on our DOE formula that ends in 26 days. If you are not producing jobs because you're not going to do jobs because you have a limited amount of line heat money, then we have a problem because we cannot meet an average cost per unit if you're not going to produce jobs. Spending your line heat money just on program support and not producing jobs, it's not going to work for us. Okay, we're going to have a problem come September 30th if you've spent line heat program support and have not produced any jobs. One, some of you subgrantees are going to have paybacks under DOE formula if that's the case. Number two, you cannot deplete your line heat funds and not produce jobs because that is why you have the money. You cannot just pay program support and pay staff and crew and not produce a job. That's all I'm going to say about that. You cannot do it. You better get some jobs on the books. All of your weatherization ready and DOE projects must be completed by September 30th, 2025. So if you, because we had this no cost extension through September 30th, we have to be done with DOE formula by September 30th. That does not mean that you go out and you do an inspection on September 30th and then you do your quarter end billing by middle of October to us. And then all of a sudden, November 1st, we see a DOE formula job from this current allocation pop up because you did it on September 30th. You cannot do that. If it happened in the quarter, even if it happened on September 30th, it has to be reported in Hancock and billed to us by the middle of October. And we will get that date out to you in an e-grant. But what that means is if you turn something into us in November that should have been billed in October, we will not pay you for it. Because if it's DOE formula, we will not have the funding to pay you for it. All jobs must be completed. Weatherization ready. We are not going to accept any more DOE formula requests on weatherization ready. So if you send in a weatherization ready request and it is for DOE formula, we will not process it. It will be denied. Now, if you send in a weatherization ready request and it is an IIJA job, that is fine. Those will still be active until September 30th. Okay, but those weatherization ready jobs have to be billed by September 30th, even if it's an IIJA job. So what that means is the weatherization ready work has to be done by September 30th, even if it's an IIJA job. All that happens if it's an IIJA job is you do not have to have the job completed under IIJA, but weatherization ready does have to be. Okay. Any questions? All right, next slide. Incentives. This is where you get a chance to unmute your mics and talk to me. I try to do a check-in on this because this is written into our IIJA state plan. I need to know from your perspective, are employee and contractor retention policies working? So we built in the incentives for employees. There definitely was a wage incentive. We do have new wage survey data. So probably with our next cycle of state plans, we will increase those minimum wages. But what I need to know is, are the incentives working? The sign-on bonuses for contractors and employees. Are you seeing a retention with your employees? Are you seeing a retention with contractors? Are those sign-on bonuses and retention bonuses attracting any new contractors? Thoughts, feelings. Do you hate them or love them? Okay, so what it sounds like is you're indifferent. So they may not necessarily be working. Okay, West Kentucky Allied reported that they've been very helpful for them. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, West Kentucky Allied, for commenting. All right. Okay, let's see. We have one more. Incentives have been good. Thanks. Thank you, Rennie. Northeast loves the incentives. Thank you, Northeast. Thank you guys for those comments. All right. Let's go on. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Mark Adams at the tech team, but we did have an open house. We saw 3 subgrantees that came out. A lot of KHC staff came out and from other departments to see the house of the training center, the new training center. We have relocated it to 107 Crossfield Drive in Versailles, Kentucky. It is a very nice building. We actually have a parking lot now. We didn't have a parking lot before. It's kind of off in an industrial road. So there's some industry. It's across from, a mechanic, right? That's right beside a body shop and by a Pearl Vision, right next to one of the very local restaurants, Mexican restaurants as well. It has a little coffee shop next to it. But it's in a much nicer area. So you guys should be really excited as you're sending your crews there. I just got a comment in on the bonuses. It's been a while since they've used contractor retention, but you feel like it was beneficial. Thank you, multi-purpose. All right. So this is a picture of the 2 training labs. We've got lab 1 and lab 2, and they are a testing and training labs. We are accredited. We have all of our accreditation approved again. And this is the team yesterday at the open house. Those labs have turned out very nice. They are beautiful. The training center is beautiful. We have 2 training rooms, complete with laptops, smart boards. We have offices there. It's a very nice facility. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark Adams, and we'll segue into him and the technical updates that he wanted to share with you. But we wanted to share this picture of them in front of the training labs yesterday because They have done a lot of work to get this center up and going from a relocation. All right, Mark.
Thanks, Kelly. I don't know what I could add to what you said about the center, but we did have a really nice turnout yesterday. If you're on here and you were able to come, thank you. I know it was a busy time and right in the middle of the day and trying to get work done at the end of a program year is tough. So I know a lot of you have already sent staff to the center. I hope that they returned with good feedback, especially in comparison to our old center. We're very pleased. We had our executive team there yesterday, and they were just really pleased with all the work that has been done and how it all turned out. So we appreciate the support that we've had from KHC to make all this happen. Again, the location is tremendous. The hotel's close by. It's easy to get to. Your GPS will take you right to it. So we're just really happy to be in. Like I say, the labs are accredited with both BPI and IREC. So we're ready. We've resumed our testing. We've been doing some BPI pilot exams. We've been getting contacts from other states, and I have actually already completed a couple of the pilot exams, so that's went well so far, and we received good feedback on that. So the lab part is really nice. If like I say, if you have staff come, we hope that they return back to your agency with some good feedback that it's just a much nicer area. So next. So every 5 years we have to update the standard work specifications. Ours isn't due until next March, but we have to submit it to DOE 6 months early to for their review. And ours was actually due to be submitted to DOE by September 22nd. We submitted that last week, last Thursday actually. It went to DOE. I had planned to share some just some of the red line when Johnny and I were talking about adding this slide to the presentation today. But instead of doing that, I will let you know that yesterday morning early we received it back from DOE with the revisions that need to be made. I didn't have a lot of time yesterday to look through it. That's going to be on the to-do list for this afternoon. But I can say that the revisions that we made were all in line with the red line changes. And some things that the red line wanted, we decided to keep in just as a Kentucky standard. So that shouldn't be a surprise. And like I say, the revisions didn't look that monstrous. Actually, I was very pleased. One of them is if we want to submit a variance, DOE said they would be supportive of it, so we're pretty good with that. Jason and I, we both work tomorrow. It's not our Flex Friday tomorrow, so Jason and I are going to go through, and hopefully we can have those revisions made and actually back to DOE maybe by tomorrow afternoon, which would be wonderful. And then we can get it approved. So that's just a note on where we're at with the SWS. We did have our grand opening yesterday, and while we were there yesterday, folks were so pleased with how the center has turned out that we decided to have another event there. And so we decided that it would be best if we canceled our December EA training, and we will reschedule that for January. So we'll make note of that when we're doing our schedule in November. We'll put an EA training in there. We do have one scheduled for October. If you have anyone that you would like to get in sooner than January, there are still spaces available for the EA. The other thing, like I mentioned, is if you have people who want to challenge the BPI exams, we're accredited now. They can take advantage of the pilots. We've received some feedback on those. Overall, the feedback on them has been fairly good. It doesn't seem like there's as much trickery involved with it, but there wasn't really as much changes as what was expected. So we'll continue to get feedback on that pilot exams, and if you have any questions, just reach out to Chase or to me, and we'll give you any information that we can. And if you have anybody that you'd like to send, hook up with me or Chase, and we'll see what we can get coordinated. Any questions, comments? For those of you who are on here that have been to the new center, what's your thoughts? Hopefully they're good.
Anybody?
Anybody?
Nothing in the chat yet.
Nothing in the cat. Well, I know Kent Dwayne's been there, so yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Right. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, so request to exceed. We talk about this a lot. We just put this in really as a reminder to you that to do your request to exceed or your WX 910, you really have to do that before the project starts. So as soon as you know what your bid is going to be, what your costs are going to be, and you know you need to exceed, you need to get those 910s in before you ever start the actual work. I just want to point out there is something in the chat about one of the subgrantees, Northeast, was at the training center yesterday for the open house, and they reported that it was really nice. So thank you so much. And we're glad that some of you were able to get out. All right. So that's all I'm going to say about request to exceed. Are there any questions? Anybody having trouble with the process? Okay. All right. BABA. I do want to talk about BABA. So this is Buy American, Build America. And we want to talk about when does BABA apply. So this is a flow chart that we are adding into the program, the Weatherization program manual, and we'll talk about that update in a little bit. But I wanted you to see the flow chart of BABA. So when you're working with a unit, and this is a really good chart to follow to know when BABA applies. Most of you do privately owned single family units. Those aren't an issue, even if they're rental. Most of you are doing duplexes, maybe, or single family rental. You might hit a triplex or a quadruplex, but that's pretty rare. But those of you that might be that might be thinking, "Ooh, but wait, this house is owned by the county government." That would be a trigger of, "Ooh, that might be BABA." So I want to flow through this. So let's say you've got a house that's owned by the county government and they are renting it to somebody, and that somebody wants weatherization and qualifies for weatherization, has applied, qualifies, what do? So you have to look at what type of entity is the prime recipient. So your prime recipient ultimately is the owner, right? In a case of the landlord, you make the cases of, well, but the person living in it, maybe they're paying utilities, so their utility bills go down. But the actual improvement is happening to the property. The enhancement is happening to the property. So the landlord is the one who ultimately benefits from it. So if it's the landlord, so the owner, then who owns it? If it is a nonprofit, are they state, local, tribal, government, institution of higher education? Let's just say they're a nonprofit developer. If they're a nonprofit developer, the project, so you flow down. Does the project involve construction, alteration, repair, infrastructure? Yes. Is the infrastructure in question publicly owned or primarily utilized for a public purpose? If it's a nonprofit developer and they're renting a unit, then that's a no. So BABA doesn't apply. Okay. But let's just say it's a county government that owns it. So what type of entity is the prime recipient? They would be a state, local, tribal government institution of higher education. That is a yes. Does the project involve construction, alteration, maintenance, repair of infrastructure? Yes, because weatherization is an enhancement. So yes. Is the infrastructure in question publicly owned or primarily used for a public purpose? If a county government owns it, then it is considered publicly owned. Even if it's a private citizen living in it, it's still publicly owned. The answer is yes, so BABA applies. That means that anything that you install that is a permanent fixture in the house has to qualify for Build America, Buy America. That means we have to follow all of the get BABA certifications on everything that is installed in the house that's permanently affixed, a permanent fixture. ASHRAE fans, heat pumps, refrigerators, water heaters. So I just wanted to flow through this flow chart with you so that some of you might be looking at projects that are owned by county, city governments or public housing. This is how that flow happens. Even if it's a single family unit, even if it's a duplex, it doesn't just apply to huge multifamily units. Most of the time, huge multifamily units are the units that you have to be more cautious about because most single family units are not publicly owned. But I did want to go through this flow chart with you of how that works. All right. Next slide. Any questions about BABA? All right, multifamily updates. So we have finished Shalom Towers. It's a nice, beautiful project. We're not going to talk about it a lot anymore, except for just maybe some highlights of success. The next multifamily project that we're working on is called Arcadia Park. It is in Northern Kentucky. It is 3 buildings. I just received an email from CETA. CETA is the subgrantee working on it. They are currently working on the modeling software for it and truing up some of the numbers so that we can submit that to DOE. So that's where that is. We are recruiting properties now, so we are looking at trying to get more properties in the mix. I know some of you have asked me for a list of project-based properties in your area. I know I owe some of that to you, so it's still on my radar, FYI. But we are looking for more properties to use in multifamily. CETA is covering about half of the state because some of you said we just don't have capacity, and that's fine. CETA is really good at doing this work, so it's not a problem. We do have to get approvals from DOE on all of our audits. We had to get 10. You have to submit 10 before you actually get DOE's approval to just move on. Arcadia Park would only be our second one. So just FYI on that, it takes a while to get through DOE. Shalom Towers took us about 4 months. And some of that was because we didn't know what we were doing with the audit software. So we were having to go back and revisit pieces. So I think Arcadia Park should move faster as far as that is concerned because CETA's doing it and they are our advisors on how to do the audit software. However, there are less staff at DOE, so it might take just as long just because there's a lot less staff. So that is where we are with multifamily, but I wanted to keep everybody updated on what we're doing. Any questions about multifamily? Okay. Workforce development. I'm turning this over to Ellery Gessler.
All right, y'all. So Chase and I are in the process of revamping and reorganizing the weatherization page on our KHC website. And one of the main things that I wanted to do is kind of reorganize all of our weatherization forms, make them a little easier to find and access for all parties involved. I just wanted to throw out there if you have any suggestions, if there anything like you are dying to see on our website, please let me know. Please send me an email. And yeah, that's all I have to say on the website.
Thank you, Ellery. We can also take comments here if you all have any comments off the top of your heads. We can certainly do that now and have that discussion. I do know we recognize that our website is tricky. We recognize that finding weatherization information is not easy. There are a lot of clicks that you have to do. So if you have any ideas on how to make that easier, we certainly are open to that as well. That Ellery and Chase are heading that project up. So I'll just give you about 30 seconds. Make forms fillable as you can. Please make the forms fillable. So that would probably be the PDFs. Okay. And some of that is doable. So we can certainly look at that. I can push that project to Johnny Bush to look at what forms we have out there and what could potentially be fillable forms.
Yeah, I can take a look at that.
Perfect. Thank you, Johnny. Anything else? Okay. And just FYI, Ellery and Chase kind of have this in their purview because they're really good at organizing, and they've been a bit critical on what our website looks like, which I will own that. They certainly should be because I'm not a fan of it either. I don't know that anyone is at KHC, so our entire website is getting a rebuild. But also we want to look at, from a workforce development perspective, what would make it easier for contractors to find information out about weatherization and how to be a contractor. So if you like start thinking along those lines as well, if you were a contractor and just wanted to know, wonder what this weatherization is that we hear about, or how could we be a contractor for KHC? Like, where would we need to, how do we need to pull them in? So think about that as well. All right. Thank you so much, Ellery. All right. Next slide. Policy manual. So we had talked to you guys about that we would update the policy manual, and the idea is that it would be updated every July 1st, by July 1st, when our state plans go into effect, so that we can get whatever changes we made in the state plan and the policy manual, and that we would incorporate the past year's public notices in it as well. So I wanted to let you know this is under revision right now. Our state plan has not been approved. We're going to talk about that, but the state plan's not been approved, which is why you haven't seen a version of the policy manual yet. So we're still working under the old policy manual and the plans from the past year. Some things that you will be notable in this policy manual is priority points. So we did have to change the way we were doing priority points. It's not a huge change, but it will probably require an application change for us as well when that state plan is approved. That our priority points, we have to give, I think we have made this change several years ago. DOE doesn't like it anymore, so we're going back to the way it was on elderly and disabled. So you get points for elderly and disabled. So anyway, it's just a little change that we're going back to the way we used to do things. All right. So that's all that is, but that will be in the policy manual. But we're waiting for that state plan to get approved before it's released. The new version should be released soon. It's going to incorporate public notices for the year. We'll have a little bit more in-depth information on multifamily and how to do multifamily. So we've learned some things from Shalom Towers. I always want to say that multifamily is still kind of a work in progress, but we learned some things from Shalom Towers. And so those things we are now able to tweak the policies on multifamily. So you'll see some more in-depth policies on how that works. We're also including information on the optional categories for your budget line items. So those will be also included in that policy manual. So I just wanted to put that out there that that's where that is. As soon as the state plan is approved and we get those revisions in that policy manual, which we are working on it currently, then we'll be ready to go. All right. Any questions about that? All right, perfect. Optional categories. So we've talked about these a lot. They are in our DOE state plan for DOE formula. We would be creating optional budget categories for intake, audits, and QCI. Everyone will get a line item for audits and everyone will get a line item for QCIs. Only the subgrantees who requested money for intake will get money for intake. So just FYI on that, but all of that was built out into the state plan. We are waiting for that state plan to be approved, and this will not impact your ACPU. So the reason why DOE offered the optional categories was to help people on their average cost per units. We elected to use the optional categories because definitely, as I have preached already, we need help on average cost per unit. So that program support lines should get better. We should see those reduce as we pull out your line items for audits and your line items for QCI inspections, and if you had a line item for intake. So those program support numbers should look better when we can put these optional categories in operation. The way we calculated, we did a flat rate for audits and QCIs. We basically went to subgrantees who were contracting out for those services, asked them how much they're contracting. We looked at our current deferral rates and then here's what we think our job production is. So out of that number of completions that we think we're going to get, right now our deferral rate is at, I'm going to make something up, 67%. So, for deferrals, they cost us this much. If you have to go back out, inspections cost us this much. So that's kind of the formula we use to come up with this rate for audits and QCIs that we gave to everyone. We based our intake numbers on what subgrantees submitted to us that they needed. Most of the subgrantees who asked for this are already paying for these services. They're paying for a staff person to do those services. So we used their salary and fringe mostly is what we did for the intake portion for those subgrantees. So I always want to highlight the optional categories because they're going to be new. So if you're a finance person, just know that these are coming your way. They will have to be tracked separately. They will be a separate line item, but it will definitely give us a break on program support and average cost per unit. Okay. Next slide. Any questions about optional categories? Okay. CERC and solar for all. We talked about this at CAK. We have the exact same slide in there because the Panda is doesn't know what's going on. So let me first address CERC. The CERC grant was awarded in August 2024. So over a year ago, we received the award announcement. We revised our IIJ state plan as directed by DOE with our CERC award included in it. That was submitted in November, the 1st of January. It went over to their contracting division for DOE, but it was not obligated, contracted and obligated before the new administration took office. So it's just hanging in limbo, and it's like the thing that nobody talks about. So that is where CERC is. Our project officer has mentioned he does not feel confident that we will get it. I have not felt confident that we will get it, although DOE did say that they would follow through on money that was awarded. However, then in the big beautiful bill, the phrasing and the words are if funds that were awarded and obligated, they would follow through on. So I don't know. Okay. This is where I am. I don't know. Which leads me into solar for all. And there was something in the chat, so I want to address it. Will the agencies that did not ask for intake money be able to opt into the next program year? Yes, that could be an option next program year. However, we'll just have to see what DOE allows us to do. So I would not have a problem with that. If you see, if you have intake envy of other subgrantees and you would like that, we will certainly open that up if we are allowed to by DOE. All right. So going back to Solar for All. The Solar for All has been a bit, it's a moving part, for the lack of a better term. And if I had my camera on, which my camera's not working, which is why it's not on, you would just see me having I am literally resting my head in my hand because I don't even know how to go into all the things that have gone on with Solar for All. Solar for All had been awarded and obligated to the state of Kentucky. It was a grant awarded to the Energy Cabinet. The grant was supposed to address solar for disaster housing and solar and weatherized houses. So for you as weatherization subgrantees, what it was going to do is any house that had had weatherization services, we could go back and offer solar. We could do that through two ways. They were going to have a community solar program, and they were going to have a solar on the premises option. It could be rooftop solar, it could be freestanding solar, but solar on the property if the house was weatherized. The way the Energy Cabinet wrote the grant was there was phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was going to be disaster housing because we felt that that was low-hanging fruit. Those houses were in repair and construction. So it's always easier to do solar on a new build. So that's why it was going to be low-hanging fruit. We have developers doing the work. We just thought it would go that we could spend that money really fast. We have developers that already have solar contractors because they're already doing some rooftop solar. So it's just going to be a little bit faster of a piece. That's why it was their phase 1. And their phase 1 plan, they were supposed to be implementing in the next 12 months. Phase 2 was going to be weatherized housing. And then phase 3 was going to be community solar and multi-family. Okay, so they had 3 phases to their grant. They were given permission by the EPA. And when I say they, I'm talking about the Energy Cabinet, the state Energy Cabinet, to proceed with phase 1. So we were in phase 1 and they were drawing the funds down from the EPA for Solar for All. On August 7th, so let me back up 2 days. On August 5th, we received our contract, Kentucky Housing and Public Protection Commission, PPC, received our contracts for disaster housing. So for phase 1 from the Energy Cabinet. On August 7th, the Energy Cabinet received a letter from the EPA that said all Solar for All funds in reliance on the big, beautiful bill were rescinded. So in the big, beautiful bill, it stated that funds that were awarded and obligated under IRA would be allowed to continue, but any funds that were not awarded and obligated under IRA would be pulled back. These funds were awarded and obligated for phase 1 and contracted. However, August 7th, they received a letter that the funds would be rescinded. The funds were in fact rescinded and they are no longer available in the EPA system for the Energy Cabinet to reimburse themselves for expenses incurred, which they were doing. So this state of Kentucky has joined 13 other states in a lawsuit on solar for all. So there is a lawsuit to try to get the funding back. That is the update as of the KHC conference. We did do a pre-session. It was about a 2-hour meeting on solar for all, what it's supposed to do and how it was supposed to work. So the lawsuit is for the funding that was obligated for phase 1, which was for disaster housing. The weatherized houses, to do the weatherized houses was a phase 2 plan. That money had not been obligated. So if they win the lawsuit, we think that it may only be for phase 1 of the grant and maybe not phase 2 and phase 3, but we don't know. It could be, but we really don't know what will happen. So I wanted to give you all that update because many of you were aware that we could do solar, rooftop solar, or freestanding solar for our weatherized houses or community solar. That is going to be in a lawsuit. And I don't know if that phase 2 part of their plan, which is where we fell for weatherization, will ever be allowed to go since it had not been obligated. So that's where that is. Are there any questions on CERC and solar for all? Okay. Okay. IIJA extensions. So I know we've got some EDs on the call today and we have some finance people. So I won't spend a lot of time on the history of IIJA or what was formerly known as bill funding, but basically when we received the award in Kentucky, we were able to get access 50% of the funding, which was what was allocated in the system for us to draw on in the DOE system. And we had to meet benchmarks, which was 30% expenditure and job completion, have an admin and technical monitoring before we could access the second 50% of the money. In November, DOE decided that they were going to go ahead and obligate the second half of the money. We received that available to us in the DOE system about the second week of January, so we can draw on it. However, we have not met benchmarks. We are not at 30% expenditure for our job completion and expenditure, nor have we had a technical monitoring. It was scheduled for March. They were put on a travel ban and couldn't come. There's still some unknowns if the benchmarks of 30% job completion and job production was supposed to be on the first half of the money, or if now it's on the full amount of the money. DOE, I think there's people at DOE that aren't on the same page, so I don't even know what those benchmarks actually look like now. All I can tell you is we weren't even close to spending 30% of expenditures and benchmarks for that first half of the money. So bottom line, what that means is every time we make a draw, we have to do a paperwork exercise and submit additional documentation for the draw to go through. So that's really what it means. It doesn't really impact you a whole lot. The paperwork, they usually have it approved within a week or so. So you might see a little delay on your IIJA funds versus your formula funds, but that's really, it's not like a 6-week delay like your life funding is. They did extend the contracts through 2029. So we do have access to the IIJA funds for quite some time. Right now, we haven't obligated the second 50% of the money. We have not contracted that to you. It is obligated to us by DOE, but we have not increased the sub-grantee awards with that funding. So it's just kind of sitting in our coffers right now. And we can hop into it if we need to, but we haven't spent the first 50%. So what we would have to do, honestly, before we can touch the second 50%, is we would have to reallocate to get the first 50% spent before we can do anything with the second 50%.
Kent is
June
asking if that is June 30th of 2029.
2029. Yes, it is. Definitely is. So are there any questions about IIJA and where it is as far as your extend through June 30th, 2029? We do have access to all of the funding. If you're seeing a delay on getting it into your coffers, it is because we have to do a paperwork exercise and we cannot submit weekly draws. In the beginning, they were allowing us to submit weekly draws. Now they won't let us do that. So we're only submitting draws every other week. So twice a month, basically. Okay. All right. No questions. State plan. So you can kind of see our little B here, like we don't know. Our state plan for DOE formula has still not been approved. We have not received any comments back from our project officer yet on it. We were able to submit it. We submitted it in May. It finally did go over to the contracting office in July. That was the middle of July. We haven't received any comments back. I do know, so in the DOE formula world, there are states that have an April 1 start date. There are states that have a July 1st start date. We are a July 1st start date. Most states are July 1 start dates, but they are focusing their efforts on April 1 start dates because when we met with our Region 2, which has 2 April 1 start dates, we met with them second week of August, they still didn't have their state plans approved. So I just want you to put that into perspective of if you had to like start your program, if we had to start our program on April 1 and we didn't have the state plan approved, that fast forward to August, so 4 months later, they still didn't have their state plan approved. And even if they had gotten 30-day no cost extensions approved, which some of them didn't get approved, even if they had, they were past their 30-day or their 90-day extension, because that would have only gotten them through June 30th. So they are, most of them are okay. They are spending on IIJA funds, but they're getting DOE's attention right now, which means we are not. Their comments back from contracting at DOE are extensive. They are answering questions they've never had to answer before. They're having to submit documents that they've never had to submit before. So I am not holding my breath that we get through contracting easy. But that is all I know. We have not gotten any comments back yet. Are there any questions? So what that means is we have 26 days left on our no cost extension. September 30th is our deadline to have all formula jobs completed and your billing stops. So we will allow you to work through September 30th. But your billing will have to be in middle of October. But we don't have promise of formula funds to start you up November or October 1. So you will have to rely on IIJA to do your jobs. Thank goodness for IIJA funding. It is still there. So what you will just do is you'll just spend on IIJA, which will be great for some of you because some of you have not been spending on IIJA. And if we were not in this predicament, I would have taken your IIJA money away from you and given it to others who are spending. But because we are in the situation that we are in, you need your IIJA money to continue to do work. All right. Are there any questions about that? And what needs to happen October 1, what your plan should be right now while we're waiting for this approval? Okay. All right. Next slide. Weatherization day. NASCAS is really, really, really trying hard to promote as many activities for Weatherization Day, which is October 30th, 2025, as they can. They want to promote it, your activities on their website and in their coverage. They are trying to get this in front of Congress as much as possible. So I'm just needing to know if any of you all have special October 30th Weatherization Day activities planned. So this is your opportunity to speak or drop that in the chat.
It could be October activities for Weatherization Day.
Correct. It does not have to be on October 30th. If you're doing any kind of like blitz where maybe you're having maybe October 15th, you're inviting your congressman to a house to see weatherization measures installed. We just need to know if you're doing something like that. So it doesn't have to be on October 30th. It could be sometime in October. NASCAS is going to cover our open house, where we did a video yesterday at the open house along with NASCAS, and we're going to probably put that on our YouTube channel, and the NASCAS is going to link to it for Weatherization Day. So anybody planning anything? If you, yeah.
Northeast has plans for Weatherization Day, Billy says.
Okay, great. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, so as you have those plans, please get those to us. So KCOC says that they're going to do something, but you don't have it planned currently. Okay, perfect. Yeah, just let us know what you're doing. And we will try our best to promote it as well. And maybe even some of us can get out to your stuff. We can divide and conquer and show up at your things as well. So please let us know what you're doing. Email us. You know where to find us. Email us, let us know what you're doing, and we will try our best to come out to your activity. And then we also want to share that with NASCAS. Thank you all so much. Invite your reps, your congressmen to your activities too. Even if they can't send somebody, at least they know you're doing something. All right. Okay, so now comes our tough topic, and we didn't have any other. I can't sugarcoat this, and I'm not going to try to for you all. I do believe in being transparent with you. We kind of got wind of this the 1st of July, but quite honestly didn't know that it even affected weatherization. The notices came to the state energy programs, and supposedly DOE was under the impression that the weatherization project officers were talking to the weatherization states about it as well, but no weatherization states knew that it applied to them. So we really found this out middle of August, around the time we had the conference. So we did kind of an emergency meeting of all the subgrantees that were at the KHC conference on Thursday morning. So we had several EDs. We had a handful of subgrantees. If they weren't able to come to the early morning meeting, we tried to clue them in when we saw them. So now's the tough topic. It's super important. If you're a finance person, please listen up. DOE will start, they started this one into effect. They said effective May 15th. We don't know if it applies to our 90-day no-cost extension, but it will affect any awards made after the middle of May. So it will affect DOE formula. It is not affecting IIJA, but they are putting a cap on fringe and indirect cost rates. So if you're a nonprofit, your indirect cost rate plus fringe cannot exceed 15% of your total award. So Johnny and Patty put some examples together of what this means. If your subgrantee total award is $253,000, The cap on your total indirect cost rate plus fringe cannot exceed $37,950. A separate example is if your total award is $125,000, your total indirect cost rate plus fringe cannot exceed $18,750. Some of you are sitting there thinking, but my fringe rate, my approved fringe rate, or my approved indirect cost rate is 25%. DOE does not care that another federal agency approved you at 25% indirect cost rate. They are telling you for their grant, you cannot exceed 15%. For those of you that are taking the de minimis rate, it is 15%, so that's not a huge shock to you. You're taking de minimis, it's 15%, no big deal. The shocker should be that they are pulling in your fringe. This is why it's a tough topic. I really think that everybody could probably absorb the 15% indirect cost rate pretty well. It is the fringe that's the problem. That is the fringe in your TNTA category, your admin category, your program operations category, your health and safety category, your program support category. All of those categories are probably getting fringe. It's going to affect your new optional categories of intake, QCI, and energy audits. Fringe is going to affect all of those categories. It's going to hurt crew-based agencies much worse than it hurts contractor-based agencies. If your contract, this does not pass down to your contractors. So that's the good thing. If you're a contract-based agency, then you're just really focusing more on what that means for your indirect cost rate and maybe your fringe for your admin people, because most of that's not contracted out. But this is where we are at. We fear that this will hurt smaller subgrantees much worse than it hurts larger subgrantees, because larger subgrantees, they have a larger award. So that percentage is a larger amount of money. I am going to open this up to you to unmute and ask me questions. If we cannot answer the questions, we are making notes, sending those to NASCAS for them to send to DOE. DOE is going to prepare FAQs. They have some out right now. But not, they don't have, it doesn't encompass all of the questions that we have. I know you have questions. I know you have thoughts. Yeah, Patty?
There's a comment in the chat that crew-based agencies won't be able to operate.
Yeah. Yes. We are very fearful of that. Okay. Thank you, Ethan, for your comment. I see that.
We did get an email question kind of related to this. Does FAL apply only to the indirect rate that agencies charge the WX program for admin services? This particular agency, the rate will fall well below the 15% of total budget.
Thank you, Johnny. I know some of you, we had talked to some of you at the KHC conference. Some of you have emailed me trying to make plans. And one of the questions I got asked was, will this affect line heat? So the response to that is not yet. Health and Human Services has not put this into the line heat language. I think I have talked to CAK about this. They, they were aware. Rick Baker was aware, um, because he sits on the board for NCAP and they had talked, but David Bradley had talked about it. That I think the fear is if so there is a lawsuit. Kentucky has joined the lawsuit for this. The fear is if the federal government wins the lawsuit, that other cabinets, federal cabinets, will follow suit with this. Now, there was a lawsuit back in the spring. I think it was waged in April because they did this with university grants. So they did this in some of their, DOE did this in some of their other grant programs. The universities sued and they won. So there is now a precedent. And so what happened is DOE just backed off of it with the universities. So there is a precedent set. So that is good when you go to court, that there's already been a court case similar to this, and the judge ruled in the favor of the universities, and they can still they can take their indirect cost rate, and it does not include fringe. So that's good. Let's see. We are having comments. Another comment: crew-based agencies are going to struggle. Yes. This is a test balloon for all federal agencies and cabinets. If this sticks with DOE, will stick with all federal agencies and cabinets. That is the fear for sure. So, I mean, think about all of your federal money. If this works for DOE, those other federal cabinets, yes, will probably follow suit. I think that is definitely the concern. If it doesn't affect LIHEAP, will we have to push all labor to that program? But then how do you spend your money? So that's a thought. Maybe you could push all your labor to LIHEAP and then DOE just pays for materials. We can talk about that, of how that works. Some were wondering could LIHEAP help make up some of that loss on fringe? Perhaps we can do that. But our LIHEAP funding is really like the way it flows to us is really problematic in some of this case too, I fear, in trying to use LIHEAP to Band-Aid. West Kentucky Allied said, at a glance, this is a $120,000 problem for West Kentucky Allied. Yeah. It's a huge problem. It's going to be a large problem for subgrantees who are in the state retirement system. We did find out at the KHC conference that there are some of you that are not part of the state retirement system. So your fringe is a little bit less than those of you that are part of the state retirement system. So we're trying to think about ways that you have to get around that a little bit. Let's see, could DOE pay for salary and LIHEAP pay for fringe? I don't know. I don't know. We could ask that question. That might be a good question for NASCAS to investigate, Donnie.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. I think that will be difficult with the 8% LIHEAP admin cap too. That was another comment. Yep. I think, Patty, we can go back and look at our LIHEAP contract, but I think our LIHEAP admin is 15% now. I think that changed, so we might be able to, we can look at our contract with LIHEAP and see if we can have any wiggle room on the admin cap.
Yeah, we probably need to get clarification if they're going to let us charge up to 15% of expenditures instead of 10.
Yeah, because last year they didn't. It was like split. It's Splitsville. So I can go back and review our contract on that. This has potential to cut our workforce in half. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's going to be, it's definitely going to hit crew-based agencies harder. So we have to be thoughtful in how we move forward. We've been discussing it of how can we make this work. So internally, we're brainstorming on ways to help. But we needed to tell you as soon as possible so that you were aware. We will be following this up with writing to you because a lot of you are going to have to talk to your financial folks and just see what kind of hit this could be for you. Some of you will be okay. So let me give you this perspective. For Kentucky Housing, our cap is 10% because we're considered a state agency by DOE. So our cap is actually 10%. It's 10% of total awards. So we are okay with our staffing levels of where we are with Fringe. We also pulled out of the state retirement system when we were allowed to do that. So we don't have this same silly high Fringe rate that a lot of you all are facing. So we're okay. So some of you might still be okay. You really are going to have to figure out and do some, you're going to have to do some predictions and projections on what your Fringe is and what this does. Would it be helpful for you all for us to work out a scenario for like just to work the numbers out for you? Here's how much your award is for IIJA. So here's what you can't exceed. Would that be helpful? Any support would be helpful. Okay, possibly yes. So keep in mind right now our IIJA, it doesn't affect IIJA. Patty and Johnny, I'm understanding that correct, right?
Yeah,
That was
currently.
my understanding.
It's not affecting our IIJA yet because it was awarded before this May 2025 date. Now it's possible and potential that, and I don't know this is a question I think DOE or NASCAS is going to ask DOE, that when we go in for revisions on our IIJA funding, especially to put in the optional categories, would that affect, does that then affect this award date and that May 2025 date and trigger this cap on indirect cost rate plus Fringe? So we don't know. Okay. But we can look at when the state plan for formula is awarded, we can look at how that's going to affect you. And what we can do is take what we put in our state plan now as your awards and predict that out. So you can start thinking about what solutions you might have. And I'm seeing Johnny and Patty a lot of yeses in the chat that would help them.
Yeah.
And then does it apply to the extension that we're currently under and we don't know? So that's a question NASCAS is asking as well to DOE.
NASCAS's comment on that was, we don't know when your extension was granted, so we would need to speak with our project officer about that.
Yeah.
And then during the webinar, their initial thought was that if we did apply for that IIJA revision, that the provision would kick in at that time.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking. We have a meeting with our project officer at the end of this month, so we can ask that question. Any other thoughts on this or questions? I'm going to ask for you all to email us by, let's see, if you all can email us your questions by September 10th, so we can get those over to NASCAS, that'd be great. I mean, if we can answer it, we will. If we can't answer it, we'll have to push it up. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments about weatherization right now? We do have a lot of unknowns. Does anybody have, I won't go into legislative stuff. I feel like I do that a lot and not a lot has changed. I haven't heard anything since they've been back from recess. All I'm seeing in the news is that they're talking about the Epstein files. So I haven't seen a lot of anything else happening as far as the budget is concerned. And we haven't seen a lot happening with the bill of weatherization and reauthorization that's in the House. And I haven't seen anything in the Senate, but again, they've been on recess. So we may start seeing some movement now that they're back from recess. Okay. All right. So my biggest takeaway for you all is go work really, really hard in the next 26 days to produce jobs and get our average cost per unit down. All right. Thank you, everyone. If you are running out of formula money to produce, please let me know. We will see what we can do to reallocate. All right. If there aren't any other questions or comments, we will go ahead and close the TA session. Thank you all. We will get this up on our YouTube channel as soon as we can, and we'll put it in the e-gram when it's available. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you all so much.